Hi, I'm Ryan Green. I'm an animation artist in Burbank, California. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about wood carving, a little bit about my career and my personal art and how that relates to my wood carving. And this is the International Association of Woodcarvers.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming in this Saturday afternoon. It's a little bit after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the International Association of Woodcarvers. Today is April the 22nd, and we are excited this afternoon to have Ryan Green in with us. Ryan's an animator coming to us from California, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his career with animation and how it transitions through his individual art over into wood carving. Before we get started with Ryan, though, I want to tell you a little bit about what we have coming up. As I do every week, I talk about the schedule, and I wanted to let you all know in the very near future, we're going to convert over to our summer series. We do that every year. For June, July, and August, I wanted to let you know we're only going to have one presenter a month. So we're going to go to a monthly format for those 3 months. The reason we do that is, one, to give ourselves a little bit of a break. Two, we also know that a lot of people have things going on throughout the summer. People are on vacations. It's warm out, so you have projects outside. And so it's worked better for us to drop back to a monthly format for those 3 months. And then starting back in September, we'll go back to a weekly schedule. So I wanted to let you all know about that so that you be prepared. I'll make sure that everybody knows on social media well in advance kind of the dates that we have scheduled so you can plan on joining with us. And then again, like I said, in September, we'll pick back up on a weekly format and go through the winter with the weekly meetings. I did want to say this past week was our 3-year anniversary. So we've been doing these meetings for 3 years now, pretty much every week, with, again, the exception of summers, and we've had some holidays and stuff where we've taken time off. Just want to thank you all for coming on, and thank all the presenters that have presented with us in the past. Without the guests and the presenters, we wouldn't be able to do this. Without our sponsors like Helvey Knives and Chipping Away, we wouldn't be able to have these meetings. We decided to do this back at the beginning of COVID. The plan was to have meetings, try to pull the community together. We didn't know at the time what was going to happen as far as COVID goes, but we did know that we wanted to try to help grow the community, keep the community together, keep talking about wood carving, and again, try to share so that people can further their skills, even though at the time they weren't able to get together in, like I said, meetings, clubs, classes, those kind of things. You all have heard me say that 1,000 times, but it's all about growing community for us. We want to see wood carving continue. We want to see it grow. And again, this is our 3-year anniversary. So thanks for joining us. Again, thanks for participating in these meetings. Hopefully they're beneficial. I want to remind you all of the meetings are out on YouTube. So if you haven't gone out and watched those, make sure you go out and check out some of those old videos. There's some great content out there, some great instruction, and it's all free. So go out and take advantage of that. Again, if you're trying to further your skills, there's been some phenomenal demonstrations, and this is a great format to go out and check those out. Having said all that, I want to tell you about the schedule that's coming up. Again, today we've got Ryan Green on. Next week, we're going to have Richard Holden come back in. He's going to do a demonstration on May the 5th. Mark Strozak's coming in. On May the 13th, we'll have Mark Dellinger. On May the 20th, Lucas Cost is coming in. May the 27th, we're going to have Woody Wood Spirits. His name is Reese, and he's out on Instagram, so go out and check out his work. So that'll be all of our weekly meetings from now through the end of May. In June, Jeff May is going to come on in June, and he's going to do a demonstration, talk to us about chainsaw carving. We've had Jeff on a few times. So he's going to be with us in June, on June the 24th. And then in July, on July the 15th, Randall Stoner is going to be in with us. And if you all know Randall, he's known as the Mad Carver on the internet. He does some 3-dimensional stuff, some layered stacking of wood, and some pretty phenomenal stuff. So he's going to be coming in July. and he'll be talking to us about his carving journey. So it's a lot of good stuff coming up. Hopefully you all will continue to join us. It's every week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Zoom, the same meeting number, 310-460-3575. And again, hopefully you all can join us when you can. And we plan on getting back in September after the summer break and going back to our weekly format. So having said all that, again, today we have Ryan Green coming on with us. He's an animator. I'm not going to talk a little bit or any really about his career because I want to allow him time to be able to do that. He's going to do a PowerPoint presentation with us. He's going to talk to us about animation, kind of how that's transitioned over to wood carving. I'm excited to have him on. And Ryan, thanks for coming on with us today. Thanks for sharing your time with us. And I'll go ahead and turn the meeting over to you.
Hey guys. Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. Let me see if I can share the screen properly. All right. Can you see that? Does that look good?
You are good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks for having me. I've been going through a lot of these videos and trying to see what content is in these wood carving videos, and they're just filled with information. And I have a little bit of imposter syndrome, honestly, coming in here. I'm going through the videos and people are like, I've been doing this for 40 years. And then they show like a wood carving in an hour, like they do the whole thing right there. So just some great stuff to look at. And I've been only at this for about 1.5 years. So for today's talk, I thought we'd just pull the lens back a little bit and look at the broader spectrum of art. And I'd like to just talk a little bit about my journey into animation and my approach to drawing personal art, and then how I got into wood carving. So if that sounds good, we'll just move along. So this is me. I was born in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which is a really sparsely laid out city. It's a city, but it feels like a small town because everyone's so far away from each other. It's got a good mix of forest and farmland. And if you've heard of Williamsport, you probably know that it is the home of Little League Baseball. So every year, teams from all over the world show up at this field, the Howard J. Lamade Stadium, and they compete and celebrate Little League Baseball. Growing up, I did not play baseball, but I did have an iguana. And I had a bunch of dogs and cats and fish. And I spent a lot of time with my animals, as well as exploring the nearby woods and the pond. And I got to just say, how sad is this picture? Like I wanted to get a picture of my iguana, and this is the only one I could find. So it's just so sad. But anyway, here's my father. He was an accountant, and he's joined us on the call here today too. He flew Piper Cub airplanes, which are a small airplane that you can actually sit in. It's a real airplane, but they're not much bigger than the one I'm holding here. And my mother was an elementary school teacher. She's on the call as well. And she decorated our home in what she always called country style. So like on every surface, there were rustic tins and wooden boxes that held bottles and jars and candles. And my mother stenciled the walls and hung cross stitch on them. And we always had this magazine laying around. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but Country Living was always sitting around the house somewhere. And I asked her to send me some of the folk art pieces she has currently, and here's some of them. And they're just very charming. As a kid, I always used to pick them up and play with them. And but for some reason, as I had to head off to college, I didn't have art, let alone folk art, in my head at all. Because of my love of nature, I decided to attend the Pennsylvania State University for biology. And since we're talking about carvings and sculpture, I just want to say, maybe because I grew up in Pennsylvania, I have maybe a little bit too much nostalgia for this sculpture here, but I just think this is a great sculpture. I've seen it many times. It's just people ride on that and take photos all the time. It's a great piece. But while I was studying in my junior year, I had to fill a free elective with a class, just a random class. And I was looking through them and I was like, well, here's a life drawing class. There's probably no homework. It seems easy enough. But that class changed my life. Like I even went back to try to find the teacher. I think her name might have been Maria Whitehall. I'm not even sure anymore. I couldn't find her, but I just wanted to let her know that, she basically made me feel that I was good at this, and sent me on a trajectory that I did not anticipate. I left that class knowing that I wanted to draw, but I had no idea how to turn it into a career. And then my girlfriend at the time had dragged me to see Disney's Tarzan in the theater. Like I really had no desire to see it. I hadn't watched a Disney movie since I was a kid, and it just wasn't my thing. And then, but I sat in the theater, and on the screen were these living, breathing figure drawings, like the ones I'd been drawing in class. And she also had this CD sitting around, the soundtrack, and I just remember sitting there drawing these two pictures here, and especially that one on the right with the charcoal, and it just connected it for me that like the figure drawings that I was just drawing in that class can translate to animation. So I went back to school and studied animation at the Columbus College of Art and Design, where I met my future wife, Fanvira Santhorn, who is now, by the way, directing this year's Disney animated movie Wish with Chris Buck, who coincidentally is the director of Tarzan. So after school, my first job was in Columbus, Ohio, at a place called Jamination Productions. And I would do things like, it was all for scoreboard animation. So I would have like a guy hit the ball, run to the base, and it would say base hit, or a monster would come in and dunk a basketball and it'd go monster dunk. And so just little things like that. That's what their specialty was. And then Fawn and I moved to New York, and I worked on some shows you've probably never heard of. And then we moved to Los Angeles a year later and worked on shows that, I don't know, you may or may not have heard of. These are from Cartoon Network. And then finally got my foot in the door as a storyboard artist on a reboot of the Pink Panther, followed by a bunch of other reboots that are all pictured here, and spin-offs as well. Prior to this, I'd been animating, but this is my first job as a storyboard artist. So what is storyboarding? For those of you who don't know, animation is very expensive to produce, and we always want to make sure that the final is done right. So what we do is we scribble a draft, and we put sound and music to it. We put it up on the screen, we watch it, and we usually throw the entire thing away, and we keep making revisions. We do that about 8 times. And then once we're finally happy with it, we take the composition for each shot. And for this one, you'd pick out how the characters are standing. This is a shot from Moana. And how are they acting? What's the mood? What's going on? And then it goes down the pipeline with a bunch of very talented artists that plus what we did and make it better on every level until it becomes the final piece of animation that you see on the screen. So with these storytelling skills, I finally was able to get into Disney in 2010, and I was at Disney Toon Studios, which no longer exists. It's a branch that was known for direct-to-DVD movies and limited theatrical releases. It basically went away because now there's streaming. And my first week on the job, I went over to the Disney store in the lot, and I saw this sculpture, and it's by Jim Shore. And I ended up just buying it. I ended up buying a bunch more of his pieces in the following years. I love his work. I don't know his process. I don't think this is probably wood that he carves. It's probably some kind of resin, but it's got the same kind of feel, and I always like them. I moved to the feature department a few years later, and I've touched every Disney animated film since Zootopia, but I still think Moana is the most special to me. Not only did I feel that my voice impacted the movie, but my wife and I have credits on this film, as well as our daughter, and she's down there circled, Kina. If you have a child within the release year, you get your child put on the production baby list. So I wanted to show a quick sample. This is a short cut song from Frozen 2. It's called Unmeltable Me. And the goal of this sequence was to show the audience in a fun and playful way that Olaf no longer needs his flurry cloud, which in the first movie, he had that at the end to show that he would forever stay, he wouldn't melt. So here, I'll just play this and hopefully you guys can hear it. Give me a thumbs up if it's good.
Hello, hello, and welcome to my show. Yes, I'm belting, well, not melting, even though I'm made of snow. Perhaps you may recall, I once needed my own flurry, but now you need not worry. Who can handle this enormous candle, unmeltable me? Who's not sweating this sweltering setting, unmeltable me? Yes, Elsa's powers grew, and it's a whole new situation. Because of our relation, I now have self-refrigeration. Who is present, but not liquescent? That's right, I just learned to read, and I like the big words. Unmeltable me, who's super cuddly cuddly and not all puddly. Unmeltable me, who's inexhaustible, undefrostable, humble and fun. It's unmeltable. Oh, thank goodness you're here. Grab a seat. Just about to bring it on home. Me.
So, that was the first time I drew Olaf, and looking back on it, his nose is super long. It's interesting that you have to kind of acclimate to staying on model, but it doesn't matter. They'll, fix that down the pipeline. But so let me just move along here. So more recently, I've been growing into leadership at Disney Animation. I was story lead on Zach Parrish's animated short film, Us Again. I directed my own short called Crosswalk through the Disney Animation Short Circuit program. I'm most proud of the look that our team created with this short. It's got these tactile looking characters and a set that just makes you want to reach into the screen and touch it. The look was inspired by stop motion animation, but was completely constructed in a computer. And currently I'm working as a storyboard supervisor on an upcoming Moana series for Disney+. So that's my career in a nutshell. I'd like to kind of shift into my personal art, which is a little different, and how I personally approach the creative process, and that'll segue to my carvings. So in my day job, this is a storyboard panel from the movie Raya and the Last Dragon. We're basically dealing with narrative illustration, and it's illustrations that are seen in the blink of an eye. So it's all about clarity. It has to read in an instant. It has to be about communicating the story just really, really quickly. You can see like this is about Boone on the right saying he's going to blow this flute, and all the characters are looking towards him, and he's in that negative space, and that arm's up really high, and so it's a focal point, and you see that that's what this panel is about right there. It's just scribbling things out to get the point of what the point of this exact shot is about. And so for my personal work, I don't mind letting the viewer think about the piece a little longer. I try to take an abstract idea or a concept and present it in the form of a drawing. I like to think more about how it feels rather than how it is. And oftentimes I draw for self-therapy, but I don't explain my personal context in the drawing. I just leave that open-ended, and I think it's more interesting to others. Viewers can insert their own life into these surreal situations. One of my earliest influences was Alice in Wonderland. I watched this probably the most as a child. It's filled with these bizarre magical moments that feel real but can never really happen outside of a dream. And then as I got a little older, it was the absurdism of Shel Silverstein. And I love even this cover on the left here. Just with these lines, he's able to make this drawing that you just want to look at, and there's a tension with a super thin ground, the dog's falling through and it's cracking. You're like, oh, is it going to break? There's just so much to look at with just some lines. The absurdist humor of Gary Larson, he's great at giving a new perspective to mundane situations. And then as I got older and moved to different cities like Columbus, New York, and Los Angeles, I got really excited about the street art scene. You just walk down the streets and it was like an ever-changing Easter egg hunt. And the pieces were usually fun and whimsical, and it was surreal imagery. The art was dreamlike. It would evoke a feeling more than the reality, and it was almost as if it was coming from the subconscious. I own both of these pieces. This is from the artist T. Way, and he plays with really fresh design language, and I love his shapes and his ideas, and especially his line work. Here's Aries from Spain. He does high concept pieces. They're sometimes whimsical, sometimes somber, often symbolic. And my wife and I got to eat with him when he visited Disney years ago, which is pretty cool. And I don't know how much he's dabbled in wood, but he made this one wood carving, which is amazing. And it's kind of based on some of these pieces that he's done on the walls. So I gleaned a lot of these qualities from my own art, just trying to draw concepts, be fun with it. It's about the feeling rather than the punchline. And to you, this one might mean one thing, but to me, this is what it feels like to pitch storyboards to a director. Or this one I drew during the pandemic when the city of Burbank took down all the basketball hoops for public safety. And I tend to sweat easily in uncomfortable situations. And, how am I doing now? I'm pretty good. So that concept just led to me thinking, what if your innermost feelings were broadcast to the world against your will? And so I just started doodling this guy. I've never done anything with him, but I just thought, like, what if he had this light on his head that always portrayed how he was feeling inside? And sometimes I just doodle pointlessly just to see what comes out. And that's just fun for me. So everyone in this wood carving group is probably wondering where my wood carvings are. So thank you for being patient. Here's the segue. So how did I get into wood carving? In 2016, my wife and I had our beautiful daughter, Kina, and my wife is a very normal 5'1" and I am a freakish 6'6" tall. So this is my wife swimming with our baby who has shown my genes. The experience of being a father triggered something inside of me though. Like my animation career had been my main obsession for over 15 years. And when my daughter was born, I suddenly had a strong desire, not only to care for her, but to learn new things. Maybe it's because I felt I needed to teach her about the world, or I don't know, maybe I just felt old and realized that there was so much more to learn about the world than just animation. But I started leaping down YouTube rabbit holes. And the first one was hand drumming. I ate up Kalani Das's YouTube channel, World Drum Club. I bought some bongos and started attending the Griffith Park Drum Circle. I was a cliche middle-aged man having a midlife crisis, but it felt good. And in one of his videos, he pulled out this instrument. It's a Native American flute, and it just had the beautiful sound. And I started down a new YouTube path, and I eventually bought my own flute from High Spirits Flutes in Arizona. And this one's in the key of G, and it's made from walnut. I've since bought a smaller high E one that I take around with me, and I'm always looking for a place with perfect acoustics whenever I travel on trips or whatever. And one day my daughter said to me, like, "Daddy, your flute sounds like nature." And I thought that's perfect. That's exactly what it sounds like, nature. So I came across this guy, and I feel like you should have him on someday. I'll just make that recommendation. But his name's Charlie Matotoyela, and he has this "you can do it" attitude about making flutes. So I ended up trying, and I think he had a video, some other people I looked at on, you could do it with PVC pipes. So I had a broken irrigation system. So I was like, I'm going to try that out. And it's interesting because there's a Native American rule of thumb where you put your hand on the bottom of the pipe, and the width of your hand is where you drill the first hole. And then all the holes after that are the width of your thumb. And I did that on this one. And I don't have perfect pitch, but it's pretty much the ideal pentatonic scale that I have on the one that I bought professionally. So it's just crazy that rule of thumb worked out on this. The plastic I had on the end there, it wasn't quite cutting it. It was a little too airy. So I carved a piece of dowel and put it on to pinch the air a little bit more and to blow across the air hole. And that helped the sound. It sharpened it a little. So that was pretty cool. So I transitioned in the wood by making some whistles. And I just, one of the most fun parts of this for me is just wandering the streets, especially after a storm, and just finding branches. It's like I'm finding gold. And I'll take a saw with me sometime and just stop the car and get out and throw it in the trunk, or sometimes if the branch is too big to process there, I've thrown it on top of the car and rolled down the window and just hold it. And I just hope I don't pass a policeman on the way home. So I started experimenting with multiple notes with multiple holes, and the top two are bamboo. The one is actually a piece of bamboo that washed up on the shore in Thailand when I was with my wife's family. And so I tried carving that there. The one on the bottom doesn't have an exit hole. It's just a whistle with two holes. So I don't know if you would call that an ocarina. It might be what it is. It's basically a whistle that doesn't have an end hole. But you can play a tiny little song on it. It's got about 4 notes because of those 2 holes. And that was a lot of fun. I'd like to try an entire flute someday. But I wanted to try characters. So, I've always loved wooden bears. The one on the right is a statue that was in Lake Arrowhead. I didn't see it the last time we were there. I think they may have taken it down now. But I always loved the level of caricature on that bear. And then the one on the left is one we picked up in that same area and brought it home. So I tried to do it myself, and this is a piece of basswood, and it was a complete struggle. It did not carve like butter, no matter how it looks when Doug Linker does it. And I hurt my thumb pretty badly, and I couldn't draw for days. I just decided that carving wasn't for me. But then my wife got me a Dremel, and I was like, oh, okay, I will try this thing out. And I began carving items with smooth surfaces that showcase the wood grain. Tried a handful of spoons, just picking up whatever wood I had. That one on the left is a piece of ipe that was from a deck sample, and I didn't know it was one of the hardest woods in the world, and that makes sense because it just killed a bunch of my drill bits, but now I have an indestructible spoon that could kill a man if I needed to. And a couple of people have told me that the things I make, like these spoons and things, feel like my drawings, which I didn't think about. But it's an interesting concept, maybe because they're just oversized and oddly proportioned, but maybe I'm just drawing, or I'm carving the caricature of a spoon or something. I began trying figurative work with the Dremel. That one on the right is a basswood bird, like a blue-footed booby kind of a thing, but very minimalized. The two on the left, I was trying to carve in the round, not knowing much about it. Luckily, the one in the middle was dry already and didn't crack, but the one on the left started cracking while I was carving it, and I just finished it up. But in a way, it fits the aesthetic. It feels like it's something from an ancient ruin, and the cracks didn't get too wide. So in a way, it kind of helped the feeling of it. In 2014, I took Ray Villafaine's pumpkin carving class. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like a master carver. The one on the left is his pumpkin, and the one on the right is, he says it's pure sand. There's nothing under there. It's amazing. I'd love to see him doing it. But these are some of my pumpkins I've done over the years. And I tried translating those techniques to wood with knives again. And this time I just made an effort not to just take that thing and just push with all my might. I just had to find a way to control it, and so I wouldn't kill my thumb. And I just started with these simple shapes, added a little bit more anatomy. They're somewhat cartoony, and a lot of my shape sensibilities, I think, are influenced by animation maquettes. I've always loved to look at these ones from The Incredibles and Ratatouille. Just seeing those expression changes up there and those forms on Mr. Incredible, there's just such great sculpts. It's like has anatomy, but they're just refined, simple shapes. And I'm also a fan of grotesque caricature too. You know, I don't know if you know this old music video by Genesis, but I've always loved that. The puppets are made by Spinning Image, and they just push their forms to the extreme. They're great at emphasizing one prominent characteristic of a face and letting the other features take the back seat. So like the one on the left is about the mouth. The one in the middle, Phil Collins, is about that dome of his head with the mullet, and then the guy on the right is just all about that nose. So I was leaning that way with these, trying to get a little bit more anatomy in my pieces, these little wood spirits. On this guy, I wanted to have the feeling that paracord was squeezing his head. I like when a carving looks like wood, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like wood. Here's a chocolate bear that I carved at a mountain cabin. It's not really chocolate, but it's basswood with a wood stain. And I was just started experimenting, just seeing if I could be really minimalist, trying with some abstraction, allowing myself to go into this haunting area. This is like an alien mask, surreal. It's kind of a freaky vibe. And speaking of freaky, I don't know, I like drawing hands. And years ago, I just put legs on a hand once, and I was like, his name is Handrew, and I draw him quite a bit. And here's a little chibi Handrew. This is one of my earlier carvings, and you can tell because it's smooth. So I was still using Dremel and knives and sandpaper. And what's happening here? Oh, was somebody drawing on the screen? Is that? Okay, I got control back. Okay. So, and then this one, for my later work, I started avoiding using power tools and sandpaper and just tried to use the knife. So, and I feel like this one feels more like a wood carving to me. And I entered this one into a contest and got some free tools. So that was pretty cool. And for that same tool company, I took part in their Meet the Maker campaign this last March. So I got one more video here to play. So that's my presentation. Thanks for listening and thanks for being such an open community. I know I've learned a lot from these videos, and and probably interacted with quite a few of you in the Facebook groups, and I ask stupid questions and people are always answering them. So it's great. So do any of you have any questions, stupid or otherwise?
No stupid questions.
Yep.
Ryan, we did have somebody ask if you worked on the movie Up. Can you talk a little bit about the movies you've worked on?
Yeah, Up is from Pixar, which is at some point Disney, I guess you'd say, bought them and allowed them to keep their creative energy. Sorry, my cat wants a pet right now. So, but yeah, it's kind of under the Disney umbrella, but it's a different studio. It's up around the San Francisco Bay Area. So I didn't work on that one. That's a great movie though.
And as far as your wood carving goes, is that something you just do for you? Where do you see that going as far as your personal art goes? And will you try to incorporate any of that into any of the movies that you've worked on or are going to be working on in the future?
Yeah, for now, like, there's always that question of like, how do you package it? How do you sell it? And that is something that like interests me. It's an interesting question. I don't feel like I'm at a place where I want to do that right now. I feel like the pieces that I really like, I don't want to sell, and the pieces that I want to sell, I'm embarrassed to sell them. So, I'm in that realm. I think you have to output so many pieces that you just don't care anymore. And you're like, all right, now they're going out to people. But yeah, I don't know. And it's possible this will enter into certain story moments. As a story artist, a lot of times you get to bring a little bit of yourself to the movies and add an idea, or maybe it can be an entire theme of a movie if I ever get to make one of my own. So we'll see.
Hey, I want to tell you, don't sell yourself short. I had a couple of carvings I hated sitting at my job, looking at me just to keep me humble.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my coworkers said, "Are they for sale?" And I said, "You want to buy these ugly ass things?" He was like, "Yeah, I think they're cool." So there's no counting for taste. I mean, I didn't like them, but he loved them. So
yeah, I guess, even if you've grown past what your preferences move to something else, there's always someone that likes it. I even think of the street artists that I featured up here, and some of them have really evolved into different places. And to a certain extent, I even kind of like some of their older stuff better, and that, that resonates with me. But I think they've probably moved on and want to do something new. So I think you're right.
Ryan, we had another question in the chat. Somebody asked, do you envision the entire image from multiple vantage points immediately, or do you sketch out front, back, top, et cetera, as far as, I guess, in your carvings and maybe in your drawings also?
When it's something like just a face, I usually just go into it. I kind of know as I'm carving, like, I'm probably going to make the mouth a little bigger, or, make this nose long. And then I just figure it out as I'm going through. There have been some pieces, like I did I guess I didn't put this in the presentation, but I did like a wedding present for a friend's friends that were getting married. And so I had to create a caricature of them, and I drew it first. And then I drew it on the wood, but when you draw on the wood, then you basically start shaving away the drawing. So I just had to work it a couple of times and keep going deeper until it, and keep looking at the drawings at the same time. That's kind of how I work if I need it to look a certain way. I was just talking with the guys here, Blake and Dave beforehand, and they were talking about making patterns and stuff like that. I haven't planned out to that level yet, but I think that's a cool idea.
And I think that's another question in the chat. They say, do you ever work with a clay model to refine your ideas? I know that's something we talked about a little bit there before we got started.
Well, yeah, as far as clay, I'm sure if I went down a rabbit hole long enough, I could find where it works for me. I took a class once. Disney will have classes that you can just take sometimes, and I made a dinosaur, but I didn't have good luck with the material. And then if I use Sculpey, which is something that people use a lot, it melted in my hands, and there's a process of, it just didn't work out for me. And so wood was kind of cool because like it keeps its shape, but as long as it's not too hard, you can get through it, and it's going to keep its structure. So clay would be cool, but I haven't figured out how to use it properly personally.
Well, and I'll throw a pitch in now on Woodcarving Academy on the internet. They offer up classes, and I know there's some instructors there that have worked through clay. I don't know if there's any clay classes there, but some of the instructors that are on there do that. If that's something you're interested in, or anybody on the meeting's interested in, go out and check out Woodcarving Academy and look at some of the instructors there and talk to them. I know Dave Stetson's on here, and he's probably worked through clay as well. But there's other instructors too that do it and do a very good job at it. So that's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions do we have for Ryan today? Anybody in the chat there want to open up and ask a question? Everybody's pretty quiet today. As far as your personal journey, Ryan, where do you see carving taking you? In other words, do you think that it will transition over to another form of art as an escape, or do you think you're going to stick with carving and just try to further your skills there?
Yeah, I don't have any desire to jump to anything else yet. And, I spent a lot of time, and I mean, man, tools are expensive too. So to transition to something else and have to buy a whole new set of tools is a big investment. So I feel like I'll probably continue this for a while, and I'll see how much time I have in between the projects I'm working on at work, and hopefully I get some time away to just sit in the shed and do some whittling, just keep at it, see where it goes. Yeah.
How many carvers do you see out in California and the area you live in? Are there any other carvers out there?
Yeah, I there's actually somebody well, I'm thinking of two now. In our story department, there's the guy that was next to me for years. He still works for the studio, but he went remote. But I'll just throw his name out there. You should look up his work. But it's Whittle Woodshop on Instagram, and his name's Jeremy Spears. And so he's got a great process. I want to say, like, you should bring him on here as well too. And
right.
And he's gone down to like the whole business of making his things sellable and how to make a profit on it, which I find really interesting. He can tell you about it, but he carves in wood, but then he makes resin duplicates, and which is a pretty big endeavor. So it's impressive, and I love his marketing and everything else that he does with it. Like his branding of his boxes and everything. He just knows his style, and it's really impressive. And there's another story artist that every year we have like a gift exchange in the story department, and we draw a piece of art or something. And I did a little wood carving this year, but someone else showed up with another wood carving. So I just ran over to her and I was like, oh, like tell me what you did with that. That's pretty cool. And so I know of two that are like working close to me.
Nice. What about your information? So if somebody wants to find out more about what you're doing, or even your past history as far as the movies and stuff go, where can they go to find more about you? I'm most active on Instagram with Ryan Green Art.
That's pretty much where I'll announce things or post my most recent carvings or whatever, put drawings up. So that's my main point of interaction with the internet for the most part. Yeah, I mean, and if you really wanted to see all of the films and things I've worked on, because it's like a nauseatingly long list, I'm on LinkedIn too, so you can just find Ryan Green on there, and it's yeah, I worked on a lot of stuff over the years, probably like 20 career's been about 20 years or so.
Nice. Any other questions from the community?
Hey, Ryan, this is Dave. How are you today?
Hi, good. How you doing?
Great. I have a narrow question. It's actually on the opposite side of the horse, or earlier in the process. Would you ever be open to teaching a class on caricature drawing that would help people who, in this line of work, sometimes you have people who are not artists carving. And there's always a challenge to help folks get better at carving by helping them draw better, getting the headsets of how to work an image through 3 dimensions and doing those things. So would you be ever open to teaching any kind of drawing classes to the carving community? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Is there anyone that does that now? Like, does anyone come to mind? Anybody in the group? I'm just kind of curious. For me, I think it would be cool. It's more of a matter of like how much time, even to prepare this presentation, was just like trying to find little bits over the last couple of weeks to put it together. So an entire class for people seems like it would be a huge endeavor. But yeah, I definitely think that drawing as the fundamental to figuring out what your wood carvings look like is really important. I think that has helped me jump into it as quickly as I did, because I just, I had decades of drawing that allowed me to understand the structure of things just in my head, and then just being able to translate it to another medium isn't as big of a hurdle. But yeah, to answer your question, I possibly would be open to doing that, but I honestly don't know that I would have the time currently. So I think something would have to change for me to do that.
Thanks. And it was a great presentation, Ryan. All that work showed up and it was really wonderful. And we love your personality. You're really quite a character, which you'll fit right in.
Thank you.
And I like the beard, by the way, too. Not that I'm,
yeah, the gray's coming in, so I'm just embracing it. And yeah, I think it looks good gray. So
great. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
All right, we'll wait a few more minutes here and see if anybody else has any other questions for Ryan today. Okay, Ryan. Well, I want to say thank you. You just said it. The amount of time that it had to take to put this together and to come in and volunteer time to come in and speak to this group and share your career and how it's transitioned into wood carving. The community is great. We love to have you in as part of the carving community, and you're welcome in our meetings anytime. But I look forward to hearing and seeing some of the things that you come up with in the future. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye on your Instagram page and seeing what you carve next. So thanks again for spending your time and coming on and sharing with us today. You're welcome back anytime. Want to let you all know a little bit about what we have that's available as far as workshops go. Janet Cordell is going to be starting a class this week on the 24th of April. It's carving an Old Faithful horse. There's probably still time to get involved with that class if you want to reach out to her. I know Dave Stetson started his class today. Hopefully some of you that came into this meeting was participating in that class before you started today. So if you're not a part of that, make sure you try to get in one of Dave's classes coming up. I know he'll be having more this year, so look for those. Dale Green's going to be doing a class on May the 20th on carving caricature dogs. Again, all of those are available out there as far as information goes on Woodcarving Academy, and you have to reach out to the individual instructors to sign up for those. So make sure that you are participating in those opportunities. Again, I want to say thank you to Ryan. Thanks for coming in today and sharing with us, Ryan. Again, you're welcome back anytime. And want to remind you all, Richard Holden will be on next week. Mark Strozak's on the 6th. Mark Dellinger's on the 13th. Lucas Costa's on the 20th. And Woody Wood Spirits is on the 27th. So we got quite a lineup. Make sure you come back every week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll see you all next Saturday on the International Association of Woodcarvers. Thank you all.
Right, but I don't know if this is his.
This is my mother. Hello.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Nice.
Yes, you were in the right spot, I think. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Now you got your biggest fan here, Ron. That's great.
I have a really old photo of her in here, so I hope she enjoys that.
Hopefully she won't mind.
Guy that's on the carving thing, his mother just joined.
Oh,
chatting
see.
about how his mother just joined.
You're probably going to want to mute at some point, Mom.
I'll mute everybody here in a minute. So
Maybe we should interview her, Ryan. What do you think?
That could be a more interesting version.
we hear the real story.
We're still allowing people in the room.
International Woodcarvers, but International Association of Woodcarvers is what we are. So whenever you want to go, we got you set and ready, and we'll let you have at it.
I'm only just gonna. This cat is just. She's gonna interrupt it. I know it, but
the cat could actually do the intro for you if you want.
Okay, let me give myself a second here, and
Perfect. Just like a professional.
Yes, 100% first time.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, you could have put the cat up and had the cat doing it.
Yeah, you're probably used to doing stuff behind the scenes and not actually being in front of the camera. So
no, it's still we have to do press sometimes, occasionally, and that still terrifies me. But I take it as a challenge just to do it. And I'm used to pitching. Like I pitch my storyboards all the time, and so if I have it on rails, I'm good. If I have to, like improv too much, that scares me more. But anyway, it's always learning and growing with that stuff.
Yeah,
it's all good. Let me get this.
Thanks, Dave.
I'm not going to miss it, man. Make sure that we don't have any issues of anything. I'm going to make sure I don't want anything on my side.
It's all good.